everybody. Welcome to the Straight Out of BS podcast. I want to thank everybody that's been supporting the podcast. Thank you guys for commenting, interacting with the video in any way. It really helps the algorithm, and just thank you for that. Thank you to all my Patreon members. Thank you to anybody that's donated. That's never expected, so it's always really appreciated. Links are in the description for that. I want to do a moment of silence for the person who's still struggling with intrusive thoughts or addiction. So on the count of 3, I'm going to do a moment of silence. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you for that. And without further ado, I want to go ahead and introduce my guest for the day. Go ahead and introduce yourself and where you went and what year.
Yes, my name is Morgan Genzer, and I went to the school called CEDU from the years of 1987 to 1990.
Okay. And walk us through your childhood a little bit and what led up to you being sent there.
Well, I wasn't the typical, as you would say, CEDU kid. I wasn't one who did drugs. I didn't drink. I didn't hang out with bad kids. I actually didn't hang out with anybody. I had terrible social skills. I had got picked on a lot. I was beat up a lot. And so my psychiatrist knew of the school and thought this would be a great place for me. So I knew, 2 weeks ahead of time I was going. I was excited.
Okay. What did they tell you?
They said, my parents said, oh, this is a great school. There's no cliques here. Everybody's friendly with each other. There's no image, no this, no that. But, they about to lie as much as I did.
Okay. And were you transported or did your parents bring you up there?
My parents brought me up there.
Okay. Walk us through that, how that happened. What do you remember about your trip up there?
Just waking up on October 26th of 87. Excited because I knew I was going to be leaving the environment I was in at home, which was absolutely hell, getting teased and picked on. And, and so when I got there, they did the rules and this and that. And I was like, okay, that's fine. I can deal with this. But they didn't go into full detail. And when my parents left, I shed a couple tears because, this is the first time I had ever been away from home. I mean, I was a shelter kid. I'll give you that much. I was a shelter kid growing up. Being away, it scared me a lot. And, but then as soon as that happened.
Okay. And what age were you when you got sent there?
14.
14?
Yeah, I was 15 and then I graduated at the age of 17.
Okay. And how long were you at CEDU?
2 years, 7 months, and 3 weeks.
Okay. And how long did it take after you got there for things to fully sink in and for you to kind of be like, where the F am I actually?
Well, I think it really didn't settle in so much with me because I think I got Stockholm syndrome. Okay. So I think maybe about 6 or 7 months in, I kind of was like, okay, this is how it's going to be. This is the way I got to be, and just kind of accepted it.
Okay. So were you kind of pretty like, just like you kind of worked your program and just did what you had to do? Was that kind of what you did when you were there? Or did you have a hard time following the rules? How was your
I followed as best as I could. Mm-hmm. But when, I don't know if you know about the raps that we would have, the attack therapy.
Yeah.
But it seems like I was the one always getting yelled at constantly by other people, where other people weren't so much getting yelled at. And so I don't know if that was because I was having a hard time following the rules or if it was something else.
Okay. And was it like that, like your whole time there? Do you feel like you were kind of targeted?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because I wasn't, like I said earlier, I wasn't the typical CEDU kid. Yeah. So I was kind of like the weakling and the one that let's go after him because he's not going to do anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And did you end up graduating from CEDU?
Yes, I did. I ended up graduating. I still had 2 years of high school left. So from there, I went to a great school back east, a boarding school for kids who have dyslexia, and graduated with my high school diploma out of there.
Okay. And in comparison to CEDU, how was that other boarding school?
Night and day.
Okay.
It's, people, I remember kids telling me, oh my God, I can't believe how strict this school is. And I'm just sitting there going, you don't know what strict is.
Yeah, right. Were you on any prescription medications before you went to CEDU?
No.
No? Okay. Did they try and load you up with any prescription medications when you were
When I was there, they actually were very anti-medication.
Okay.
So even when after I graduated from the program, I was struggling. My parents recommended, why don't you go on the medication and see somebody? And I'm like, no, because I was still so much in that Stockholm syndrome
Mm-hmm.
that I wasn't accepting medication. Finally, when I did, it made a big difference in my life.
Okay. Did you spend any time in did they have any solitary confinement there or anything like that?
Nope.
No?
I mean, they did. They had what was called, I'd say full times, where
Okay.
you sit at a table and you isolated, but you're not solitary, but you're isolated. You can't be touched. You can't laugh. I never did one, so I don't know what it was like. But you were pretty much isolated at a table where everybody else was out doing their own thing.
Okay. Were you forced to admit to things that you hadn't done? Okay.
I did a couple times. There was one time where I was in a rap, and it got out that I said I was learning disabled, and I never said it. But everyone else jumped on the boat saying, you did say it, you're lying, just admit you said it. And then they even got even more pissed when they found out, because I didn't know I was learning disabled at the time,
Mm-hmm.
that I said that they got pissed because the fact I wasn't learning disabled, and I said I was learning disabled. So it was like lying, and so they got double pissed.
Okay. What was the worst thing that you saw or experienced in CEDU?
Geez.
And it can be more than one thing if you have more than one
Right.
thing.
No, I think the worst things that's happened to me is what I saw was just how much they screwed with me up there. There was one gal that came there three days before I did, but she ended up graduating 6 months before I did. And their definition or their explanation on that was, because he wasn't ready to move on with that group.
Yeah.
Which is not true. But and then they also had me repeat a math class because I was going back to high school, and stuck me back in the geometry class when I was getting ready to take algebra. So I had no algebra going into high school. I had to go to summer school to get caught up. So it was just stuff like that. I mean, I didn't see, the school was anti-violence, so you really didn't see any physical stuff go on, but the emotional torment was just incredible. I mean, they would get in your face and point and yell at you.
Yeah. Yep. Did your credits transfer when you got out?
Some did, some didn't.
Okay. Did they have an explanation for why some did and some didn't?
Because there was no, like we had these 24-hour emotional workshops called Profits.
Okay.
And we were graded on it, pass or fail, to get the credit. But when we got to the high school was like, what's this? Profit? It was like, it was an unknown entity. So it didn't transfer. But my academics did transfer.
Okay. So you didn't have any issues with that. Okay. Let's see. How many people would you say on average were there when you got there, and how many people were there when you left? Just an estimation, like if you had to make it.
Maybe 100.
Okay.
And maybe when I left, I'm not left, but when I graduated, maybe about 103, 104.
Okay. And what was the hardest part for you of being at CEDU? What was the hardest thing for you?
Being there.
Being there?
Yeah, because I was I was with kids I had nothing in common with. And then getting yelled at because I wasn't, I wasn't maturing fast enough in their eyes. They even I just remember they even had me doing an MRI on my brain because they thought I wasn't maturing fast enough there.
Wow.
Yeah.
That must have felt dehumanizing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I was like, what's going on? I mean, there was no, all of a sudden one day they just like, well, you're going to go see a neurologist. I'm like, what for? And they're like, well, because we want to make sure you're all okay because you're not maturing fast enough. And it's just like, okay.
That's unbelievable. How was the food? How did you like the food there? Was it horrible? Was it bearable?
Yeah, horrible. It was horrible.
Okay.
It was, what was edible. I ate a lot of salad, ate a lot of breakfast, but as far as lunch and dinner, a lot of it was inedible.
Okay. Did you ever hear about or witness any like grooming or sexual abuse from staff towards the students, or any weird stuff like that? Okay.
I didn't see any of it. I've heard rumors of it, but I never saw it when I was there.
Okay. And you said you were there about 2 years, you said?
It's almost 2 years and three. I would say 2 years and 3/4 year. So almost 3 years.
Did they have at CEDU a place that they would threaten students with if like they didn't act up or start?
Yeah, there was 2 places. There was one where they were threatening. When I first got there, they were threatening to send kids to Provo Canyon.
Okay.
And then as I got in there, further on, it changed, and they were now sending, the ones that weren't following the rules repeatedly, habitually breaking the rules, they would send her a 21-day wilderness program.
Okay. Did you know anybody that got sent to any of those places when you were there?
Yeah.
Okay, so it was more than a threat. It was they actually did it. Okay.
Yeah.
Were there any runners when you were there?
What do you mean by runners?
Like people that tried to run away from the.
Oh yeah. Running away from CEDU was a very common occurrence. Whether they'd go down the road, whether we would go down the road or by hitchhike, or they'd go down because CEDU was on the top of a hill, and you can go down the backside. Some people went down the backside to try to get away, but it was a pretty common occurrence.
Okay. Anybody get away, or any particular ones stick out to you?
No. There's not one that sticks out, but I know several that made it home and didn't get sent back. It's they were saying about half the kids that enroll make it through. So that should say about they may get 300 kids per year, 150 of them won't make it through the year.
Okay. What was the hardest rap for you to be in? Was there one that stuck out in particular for you?
Yeah, when there was a guy named Rudy Benz who worked there and ran the raps. If you got in one of those raps, you knew you were gonna get grilled. And it wasn't so much the yelling that got you, but it was the verbiage, what he said, and how he ridiculed you and put you down and made you and call you names. I know he went after like girls who hadn't even had sex yet, calling them sluts and whores and things like that. And the thing in one of those is you knew you were in trouble.
Yeah, definitely. You were so you described yourself as kind of like just kind of keeping to yourself before the program. Do you feel like being at CEDU made you go more into your shell after you got out, or do you think that it was still hard for you to relate to people, or even harder after you got out?
I think it was even harder because I was under the CEDU. I have to live my life like I'm at CEDU syndrome. So people thought I was crazy. People thought I was weird and strange. I was high on life because I graduated this great program, but I was so. What CEDU did to me is, yes, it taught me how to converse with people, but only on an emotional level.
Yeah.
What happened is when I came out of there, I was talking about my emotions to people I didn't even know, and people were like, "What the hell is this guy's problem?"
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it made me more open in a bad way, I guess you would say. It didn't cause me to go in the shell. It just made me more open to talk with other people, but not on the right stuff.
Okay. Interesting. Interesting. What have you struggled with the most as a result of CEDU? That's one of them. Was there anything else that you struggled with?
Oh yeah, my anxiety. I still have. If say, because I'm a photographer, so say if a client calls me, the first thought that comes to my mind: what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong?
Yep. Yep. I feel that. I get that all the time too. Yep.
And that's probably the anxiety that one. Um, Going always assuming the worst because you knew.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yes.
Yeah. And so, but it's for, and also my self-esteem is shot. When I go out and try and meet people or whatever, I can't do it because my self-esteem is just gone to hell.
I definitely feel that. I relate to everything you said. Do you feel like the program made that worse for you? Like exacerbated these symptoms?
Yeah. Looking
Okay.
back, yeah. Oh yeah. I went there as thinking this was going to be a utopian place for me. Here I am living this horror, and instead of getting teased and picked on, I now got emotionally ridiculed and tormented.
Yep. When you first got out of the program initially, were you still under the impression or were you ever under the impression that the program like was really good for you and that it did a lot of good things?
Yeah. Oh
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
For the first 2 years, in fact, I remember for the first 2 years, I was like, "Oh, this is CEDU's great. CEDU's this." And I was living in so CEDU strict standards that I was because I was so worried about developing bad rumors about me. So
Yeah.
so under the spell, I guess you'd say that for the longest time I was like, "Oh yeah, this great place I went to, this, that, and and I finished it, and half the people who enroll graduate, and it was just like I was on cloud nine for a couple of years."
What was there a specific point or something in particular that made you change your mind or start thinking
Yeah, I had
otherwise?
a nightmare. I actually had a nightmare while I was back in Iraq,
Interesting.
and I remember waking up, and I was actually on a backpacking trip at the boarding school that I went to after CEDU, and I was talking about it, and the teacher actually knew about my story from CEDU.
Mm-hmm.
She almost interviewed there, and so she wanted to know about my experience there. And she's like, I thought you said that was such a great place. And I was like, well, there's stuff you don't know about. And I think at that moment, I kind of said, CEDU is not good.
Yeah. Did it take you a long time to I know that none of us are probably fully done unpacking everything that really happened to us and how we actually were affected by these places, but did it take a long time for you to unpack that stuff? Or are you still unpacking? Just like unpacking like how CEDU actually affected you?
Oh yeah. No, I'm so after watching the stuff on Netflix and on on Max, on Synanon and all that. Yeah, it's brought back a lot of stuff, and that's why I jumped on the chance to tell my story.
Awesome. What happened after you got out of the program?
That summer, I went to the summer school to get caught up on my algebra at that boarding school, and that summer, and basically fell flat on my face because people were like, "This guy's talking crazy." I had no friends, and I really struggled.
Okay. And then after you got out of there, what happened after that?
After that, I went to City College for a couple of years, and then I was struggling with that, just academically. I just couldn't do it, couldn't hack it. I wasn't ready. Then went to work. Then went to a different city college, graduated from there, and then picked up my dad's camera, and the rest is history.
Awesome. I think it's awesome that you're a photographer. I love people that take pictures and make videos and stuff like that. It's really cool. I like taking pictures too, personally. Let's see. Have you tried talking to your parents about how the place affected you?
Yeah, and they're very, I think, I kind of feel bad because my parents feel bad about sending me there. I mean, they admit it right off the bat. They're like, we were wrong, of sending me there. So, I don't have the desire to talk to them about it because they know in other words, they fucked up.
Yeah, they get it, and they've acknowledged that they made a mistake.
Yeah. So there's no angry feelings towards them. So.
Yeah, well, that's good. I'm glad you got that closure. Did it help to hear them say that they made a mistake?
Not really. It didn't. I want to say that's kind of like an in the middle question because it didn't help or not hearing it hinder me in any way. Just when they periodically I would talk about it, and then they would say, "Yeah, we know we screwed up and this and that," and I would say, I don't, really hold any grudges against you guys for doing that. Because I knew they were trying to find me a good place.
Yeah. Do you have any regrets about your time at CEDU?
Nope.
Okay.
No, I can't think of anything I regretted.
Okay. And if you could go back in a time machine and not go through CEDU, knowing what you know now, would you do it, and why?
I probably would, because I think they would have found out that I had dyslexia, and they would have got me into the school I ended up going into, which would have taken me out of that environment that I was in at home. And I think just in that whole period, I think a lot of trauma that I deal with today, a lot of anxiety that I deal with today. I've been diagnosed as having borderline personality disorder. So, and I think that would not have been triggered if I didn't have to go through CEDU.
Okay. And what do you think would have helped you instead of being sent away?
I don't know, because not to say what the kids did to me was okay, but I had a terrible speech problem growing up. I stuttered a lot. So they went out, so they had ammunition. So I don't know what would have been, what I could have done. There we go. Could have done that would have made things smoother or easier if I didn't, go to CEDU or so forth.
Okay. And is there anything else you want people to know about your experience, or anything that you might tell a parent thinking about sending their kid to a place like this?
Yeah, I mean, I was already damaged going in because of the teasing and getting picked on, and then coming from a dysfunctional family just made things worse. Mm-hmm. So if your kid's acting out, it could be coming from the family. So I would say take a look at the family and see where the problem is coming from before sending the kid right away to a place of hell.
Okay. And I also have one more question for you. Knowing what you know now, is it your belief that these remaining schools that are still open, is it your belief that they should or even could be fully regulated, or is it your belief that they should be shut down?
Well, I've always compared CEDU to, like, I don't know if you ever know the story of Camelot.
Yeah.
Where it's like, it's a great idea, but the of the round table and this and that. But you got one person seizing power and then taking control of everything. And that's how I look at the schools is somehow or another they're going to manipulate the system to where they're going to take control, and then, may start up as a good idea, but then take control. And before you know it, have full control and and just do what they want to do.
Okay, so you think they should be shut down?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. And if you ever want to do a part 2, it's always open. A lot of times when we do these interviews, things come up and people remember stuff. So just jot down some notes and reach out, and we'll make it happen.
Okay,
and
great.
If you guys have watched so far in the video, please make sure you like the video, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and leave a comment down below. We'd love to meet you. And we will catch you on the next one. Bye, y'all.